I got my FSD Beta. I am so happy. I just tried it for the first time, and now I am actually even more bullish on Tesla than I was before. And I only own Tesla stock in my stock portfolio. What I saw, what I felt was absolutely unbelievable. Just a year ago or longer, then the function came out where Tesla can go through traffic lights and see stop signs and stuff like that. That feature for me here in Vancouver City did not really work at all, where I would never want to use it. And even autopilot in the city, it would, if there's a car in front of me and the car would start going, my car would wait for like 5 seconds, or it would feel like an eternity until my car would start going. It would feel like someone from the back will start beeping at me. There was none of that in this drive. I was quite happy with that. And then also, turns were pretty good. Although when it goes through intersections, when it turns, it feels like it has some places to be. It feels like it's rushing a little bit. So of course it's not perfect, definitely not. But my timeline was sometime before 2030. And now when I see how bad the autopilot was within the city, and now how relatively good FSD Beta is, where I actually now want to use FSD Beta when I drive every single time, because the drive was just better. Literally. There was this one moment later where I was driving and I was like, why is the car not going? And when I turned, like, oh, that's why. It's actually safer. And my expectations were so low when I tried it, because I was like, this is Vancouver City. It probably doesn't have that much data, so how good will it be? Probably not very good. It will probably try to crash itself, like I've seen many videos. And in San Francisco it works well, but anywhere outside it's like, I don't know. But I was so surprised. So how did it get so much more better so quickly? Well, here's how.
This time around last year, we had roughly 2,000 cars driving our FSD Beta software. Since then, we have significantly improved the software's robustness and capability that we have now shipped it to 160,000 customers as of today.
And now with a wide release for FSD Beta, that number, will quickly get to 500,000 and then 1 million. There are so many people that I've seen on Twitter, for example, saying that they have just subscribed to the monthly FSD subscription to try it out for the first time. That number, I imagine, is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as full self-driving gets better. Just earlier this year, when I was watching full self-driving videos in January, it looked pretty bad. And then somewhere around August, I'm like, whoa. Pretty good. And now I tried, I'm like, whoa. Me expecting that full self-driving is going to be actually solved before, just sometime before the end of 2030, 80 years, you could say, worst case. That's looking so bearish right now to me.
For example, we trained 75,000 neural network models just last 1 year. That's roughly a model every 8 minutes. That's coming out of the team, and then we evaluate them on our large clusters, and then we ship 281 of those models that actually improve the performance of the car. And this pace of innovation is happening throughout the stack. The planning software, the infrastructure, the tools, even hiring, everything is progressing to the next level.
Full self-driving is the #1 reason why I own Tesla stock, and the progress, you really have to feel it. It just becomes on a completely different level when you witness it yourself emotionally.
Let's talk about some training infrastructure. So we've seen a couple of videos, 4 or 5. I think and care more and worry more about a lot more clips than that. So we've been looking at the occupancy networks just from Phil. Just Phil's videos, it takes 1.4 billion frames to train that network, what you just saw.
Is how I felt when I saw that visual for the first time. It's a lot of data, and Tesla, by far, has the most data. No one has more. That's why I would expect Tesla's lead not to stay where it is right now, but to also accelerate even further. The more data you have, the further you're going to get ahead, and the faster you're going to get ahead. Like, that's why James Dauma, the AI expert, he says that Tesla, when it comes to data, is probably 10 or 100 or even 1,000 times, that's a direct quote from James, ahead of the guy that's number 2 when it comes to data. So if data is the way to solve full self-driving, clearly, I believe Tesla will be number 1 to benefit from full self-driving.
The occupancy network takes video streams of all our 8 cameras as input, produces a single unified volumetric occupancy in vector space directly. For every 3D location around our car, it predicts the probability of that location being occupied or not.
The occupancy network is pretty impressive. I mean, when I was driving and I was like, why is the car not going? And then I turned like, oh, the car has 8 eyes. I only have 2, and they are both looking forward. It's pretty impressive.
And if you have 100,000 GPUs, it would take 1 hour. But if you have one GPU, it would take 100,000 hours.
100,000 hours? That is 11 years. Here's how we get around it.
So that is not a humane time period that you can wait for your training job to run, right? We want to ship faster than that. So that means you're going to need to go parallel.
Well, that sounds cool, but what does it mean exactly?
So you need more compute for that. That means you're going to need a supercomputer. So this is why we've built in-house 3 supercomputers comprising of 14,000 GPUs, where we use 10,000 GPUs for training and around 4,000 GPUs for auto-labeling. So go on and on. I just went touched on 2 projects that we have internally, but this is actually part of a huge continuous effort to optimize the compute that we have in-house. So accumulating and aggregating through all these optimizations, we now train our occupancy networks twice as fast just because it's twice as efficient. And now if we add in a bunch more compute and go parallel, we can now train this in hours instead of days.
Nice.
And with that, I'd like to hand it off to the biggest user of compute, John.
Hi, everybody. My name is John Emmons. I lead the Autopilot Vision team. I'm going to cover 2 topics with you today.
I mean this in the best way possible. You know, he's a nerd. He's good at what he's doing.
The first is how we predict lanes, and the second is how we predict the future behavior of other agents on the road. All right, so ultimately what we get from this lane detection network is a set of lanes and their connectivities, which comes directly from the network. There's no additional step here for sparsifying these dense predictions into sparse ones. This is just the direct, unfiltered output of the network. OK, so I talked a little bit about lanes. I'm going to briefly touch on how we model and predict the future paths and other semantics on objects. So I'm just going to go really quickly through 2 examples. The video on the right here, we've got a car that's actually running a red light and turning in front of us. What we do to handle situations like this is we predict a set of short time horizon future trajectories on all objects. We can use these to anticipate the dangerous situation here and apply whatever braking and steering actions required to avoid a collision. So putting it all together, the Autopilot Vision Stack predicts more than just the geometry and kinematics of the world. It also predicts a rich set of semantics, which enables safe and human-like driving.
I was actually very impressed when I tried FSD for the first time, how much like a human it feels that it is, in a way, how it drives, how it feels, how it makes decisions. There wasn't much of that shakiness or super indecisiveness that I drove it. Very impressive, and that's how.
Let's talk about auto labeling. So we have several kinds of auto labeling frameworks to support various types of networks. But today, I'd like to focus on the awesome LanesNet here. This machine easily scales as long as we have available compute and trip data. So about 50 trips were newly auto-labeled from this scene, and some of them are shown here. So 53 from different vehicles. So this is how we capture and transform the space-time slices of the world into the network super.
The more cars Tesla has on the roads, the better the data and the better FSD is in that particular area. But because it also understands better how to handle this particular area, it will handle every other area better that's somewhat similar to that particular area. It's this never-ending loop of FSD, full self-driving, just getting better quickly. And Tesla is making so much profit right now when they sell every single vehicle, but they could just be selling them at just tiny profit, and I would still be super happy because we need that data to sell full self-driving faster. The more cars we have on the road, which is what we want, the faster we will sell full self-driving. So if you have to cut prices multiple times, that's totally fine with me because we get that data.
For example, the simulated scene playing behind me. A complex intersection from Market Street in San Francisco. It would take 2 weeks for artists to complete. And for us, that is painfully slow. However, I'm going to talk about using Yagen's automated ground truth labels along with some brand new tooling that allows us to procedurally generate this scene and many like it in just 5 minutes. That's an amazing 1,000 times faster than before.
That's just so ingrained in Tesla's DNA. Tesla is just, it just keeps making things better that before you couldn't. Like gigacastings, 4680 batteries, structural battery packs, etc., 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 etc. No more ultrasonic sensors, no more radar. Delete everything unnecessary. And by that, I mean things that everyone thinks are absolutely necessary, but these are just completely wasteful. And then in turn, higher margins.
And this really sets us up for size and scale. And as you can see on the map behind us, we can easily generate most of San Francisco city streets. And this didn't take years or even months of work, but rather 2 weeks by one person.
Mic drop. I'm not going to drop this one. I just got it. It was $1,000. Canadian dollars with audio interface and a cloud lifter and all the other things.
Come full circle, because we generated all these tile sets from ground truth data that contain all the weird intricacies from the real world, and we can combine that with the procedural, visual, and traffic variety to create limitless targeted data for the network to learn from. And that concludes the sim section. I'll pass it to Kate to talk about how we can use all this data to improve autopilot. Thank you.
This data engine framework applies to all our signals, whether they're 3D, multicam video, whether the data is human-labeled, auto-labeled, or simulated, whether it's an offline model or an online model. And Tesla's able to do this at scale because of the fleet advantage, the infra that our Eng team has built, and the labeling resources that feed our networks. To train on all this data, we need a massive amount of compute.
Let's see just how much.
So I'll hand it off to Pete and Ganesh to talk about the Dojo supercomputing platform.
I'm frequently asked, why is a car company building a supercomputer for training? And this question fundamentally misunderstands the nature of Tesla. At its heart, Tesla is a hardcore technology company.
Mic drop.
Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about Dojo and give you an update on what we've been able to do over the last year.
Now, last year, we showcased our first functional training tile. And at that time, we already had workloads running on it. And since then, the team here has been working hard and diligently to deploy this at scale. Now, we've made amazing progress and had a lot of milestones along the way. And of course, we've had a lot of unexpected challenges. But this is where our fail fast philosophy has allowed us to push our boundaries. Now, by focusing on density at every level, we can realize the vision of a single accelerator. Now, starting with the uniform nodes on our custom D1 die, we can connect them together in our fully integrated training tile, and then finally, seamlessly connecting them across cabinet boundaries to form our Dojo accelerator. And altogether, we can house 2 full accelerators in our exapod for a combined 1 exaflop of ML compute. Now, altogether, this amount of technology and integration has only ever been done a couple of times in the history of compute.
Which coincidentally is exactly the number that I dropped this mic today.
Next, we'll see how software can leverage this to accelerate their performance. Die local reduction, followed by global reduction towards the middle of the tie, then the reduced value broadcast radiating from the middle, accelerated by the hardware's broadcast facility. This operation takes only 5 microseconds on 25 Dojo dice. The same operation takes 150 microseconds on 24 GPUs. This is an orders of magnitude improvement over GPUs.
It's tempting, but I may need to use that mic sometime again, so maybe not this time.
The results we're about to see were measured on multi-die systems for both the GPU and Dojo, but normalized to per die numbers. On our auto-labeling network, we're already able to surpass the performance of an A100 with our current hardware running on our older generation VRMs. On our production hardware with our newer VRMs, that translates to doubling the throughput of an A100. And our model showed that with some key compiler optimizations, we could get to more than 3x the performance of an A100. We see even bigger leaps on the occupancy network. Almost 3x with our production hardware, with room for more. And this Dojo tile costs less than 1 of these GPU boxes. What it really means is that networks that took more than a month to train now take less than a week. So we started with hardware design that breaks through traditional integration boundaries in service of our vision of a single giant accelerator. We've seen how the compiler and ingest layers build on top of that hardware. So after proving our performance on these complex real-world networks, we knew what our first large-scale deployment would target: our high arithmetic intensity auto-labeling networks. Today, that occupies 4,000 GPUs over 72 GPU racks. With our dense compute and our high performance, we expect to provide the same throughput with just 4 Dojo cabinets. And these 4 Dojo cabinets will be part of our first exapod that we plan to build by Q1 of 2023. This will more than double Tesla's auto-labeling capacity. The first exapod is part of a total of 7 exapods that we plan to build in Palo Alto right here across the wall. And we have a display cabinet from one of these exapods for everyone to look at. 6 tiles densely packed on a tray, 54 petaflops of compute, 640 gigabytes of high bandwidth memory with power and host to feed it.
We really wanted to show the depth and breadth of Tesla in artificial intelligence, compute hardware, robotics actuators, and try to really shift the perception of the company away from, a lot of people think we're like just a car company or we make cool cars, whatever, but they don't have, most people have no idea that Tesla is arguably the leader in real-world AI hardware and software, and that we're building what is arguably the first, the most radical computer architecture since the Cray 1 supercomputer. And I think if you're interested in developing some of the most advanced technology in the world that's going to really affect the world in a positive way, Tesla's the place to be.
Just like Tesla stock is the place to 10x your money. Not financial advice, of course, but these are 48 reasons why I only own Tesla stock in my stock portfolio. My name is Matt Posius, and I'll see you later today. Thank you so much for watching.